2018 in April that WUHAN, we all know that city by now, don't we, will be a pilot city. Here it says a large-scale F.I.V.E. network engineering program will be piloted in Wuhan. Furthermore, their hospitals have been supercharged with this most of all, F.I.V.E.G. or 60 gigahertz frequencies. By 2019, 26,000 scientists had signed the petition calling for a moratorium, an urgent and complete halt to the F.I.V.E.G. rollout due to its having been proven, quote, harmful for humans and the environment. They are not telling you, and they will not tell you, are legitimate reports on the road of exactly what symptoms these people are experiencing, because then you too can start to put it together. But also, you're not going to see any correlation of the timing of this outbreak to the release of the 60 gigahertz frequency. What people don't know is that the FCC didn't just randomly pick 2.4 gigahertz. In fact, it was selected by this entity right here. These guys were responsible for its selection. Do you know what other products they make? Now, this 2.4 is a frequency known to cause these problems I won't go into now, but my point is, in the same vein, 60 gigahertz is also selected to be the next unlicensed frequency, and so we the people will be bombarded with it. That means to me, we need to know what it does. 60 gigahertz has a very distinct impact on none other than oxygen itself. They openly admit that 60 gigahertz is absorbable by oxygen. You can see in this graph here its impact on oxygen. All the frequencies before 60 gig are not impacted. Then once it hits that frequency, it spikes and becomes hugely absorbed by oxygen. Oxygen, the atom, is O. Oxygen, the molecule, is O2, two atoms together. Now, these two atoms creating the oxygen molecule are sharing some electrons. 60 gigahertz causes the electrons surrounding oxygen molecules to spin. Right. Somewhat akin to how high-powered microwaves running on 2.4 are impacting molecules in foods such as water. They're heating in part by impacting those molecules to rotate or oscillate with each wave. The movement energy from the rotation of these super tiny water molecules is actually helping to heat the rest of the food. So in a similar way that 2.4 causes H2O to oscillate, 60 gigahertz, even at lower powers, is causing the electrons on oxygen molecules to spin. And as you might imagine, changes to the spin frequencies on oxygen electrons can have impacts on human biology. Breathing air into your lungs gets oxygen into your blood, and therefore in important places like your brain, is because the oxygen entering into your lungs gets picked up by a very important iron-containing protein called hemoglobin in your blood. But the unfortunate impact of oxygen molecules spinning the electrons is that it makes the hemoglobin unable to uptake the oxygen and get it to the rest of your body. Now, this info was taken from a textbook called Magnetobiology, Underlying Physical Problems. But
anybody else know of industry commitments to back research, fund it, support it, to ascertain scientifically the health effect?
No, I'm not aware of any.
So there really is no research ongoing. We're kind of flying blind here so far as health and safety is concerned.
Suddenly falling over in the streets that the CH government doesn't want people talking about or sharing with no other apparent illness. Guys, listen, CV is not new, okay? It's a cold, it's a flu. That's why it says on the side of hand sanitizers like Purell and the side of a can of Lysol that it kills it. It's common enough to be listed on the most common disinfectants. But now the CH government is admitting that people can have virtually no symptoms and suddenly fall over. No symptoms, but then they can still have it. What is it? If your lungs are not able to put oxygen in your blood, how long would it take you to fall over? Admitting to working with SES, and although they're calling it Wi-Fi, that is a misnomer considering that the company seems to be using millimeter waves. Here are a few clips from some of their videos.
And the way we fuse all the technology together to ensure your experience is as great as possible. MedallionNet uses mid-Earth orbit satellites, or MEO, that are positioned 8,000 kilometers away. There are 20 MEO satellites surrounding the equator that see our Medallion-class ships. GEO satellites actually still reign supreme when enabling connectivity in the polar regions. This is because GEO is not impacted by rain and weather. So onboard Princess Cruises ships that feature MedallionNet, we leverage MEO and GEO satellites to keep you connected to the things you love most, and seamlessly shift to GEO when in the north.
Now, when you look a little more into this company, SES, that's when you find this crazy information. You can see they're presently teaming up with governments, including the U.S. government, and of course our MILITARY, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance missions. One realizes this company's products and services catalog looks like a homeland security dream or privacy lover's nightmare. These satellites to beam none other than what? 5E. So, are these passengers getting sick from a VIRUS? That, by the way, they are admitting that the people on the ship haven't been tested for, or are they getting sick from millimeter wave frequencies being beamed at them even while they sit trapped in quarantine? Wow. All right. Antenna is rumored to have taken 13 years to finish, and although its official purpose was, quote, to detect earthquakes and minerals, others speculate it would be used to communicate with submarines. While the article states the exact site of the facility is not being disclosed, but information in Chinese research journals suggests it was in the Huazhong region. Oh, just so happens to include Wuhan. Over 60% of people had acute respiratory distress, respiratory failure. Symptoms included shortness of breath, rapid breathing, and bluish skin tone. Can that happen with lack of oxygen? Yeah. There was also shock. That is a state of insufficient blood flow to the tissues as a result of problems with the circulatory system. Your muscles need more oxygen to continue working, right? Now, if you're not getting that into your muscles because it isn't coming into your hemoglobin, there's no feeding your muscles, including your heart, thus, right, acute cardiac injury. Almost every 101 tutorial on pneumonia says the same thing. The main problems with pneumonia are the lack of oxygen as a result of phlegm. Is pointing to people who don't actually have fluid in their lungs at all, but they have dry coughs. Not wet coughs like this, but dry coughs with no phlegm. They're saying the same thing. Look at this. Inability to breathe and dry cough. So please, would one of you virologists care to explain to me why these people have respiratory distress, aka can't breathe, if there's no phlegm causing the problems with oxygen uptake? I mean, besides the 60 gigahertz frequency making hemoglobin unable to properly bind to oxygen. How do we know that this isn't due to other repercussions of millimeter waves on oxygen itself? I mean, we know that the impacts of magnetic frequencies can have a result of things like seizures, right? How often do people with pneumonia have seizures? But we have seen tons of leaked footage of people with exactly that, seizures. I've all these problems without the fever. I mean, how many times have you had flu without the fever? How do we know if a mild fever can't also be a result of all these other aspects of 60 gigahertz? The answer is, we don't know. WHO is the same group that has done nothing to stop the dangers of these high frequencies for the rest of the world, even though hundreds of scientists are petitioning they do. China hardly has any tests to confirm whether or not people have the VIRUS. So many times people are going to be coming down with this, symptoms of this, and they're going to label it acute respiratory problem and perhaps even dying from it before they test. And when that happens, aren't they going to just assume that it's a positive case of CV? I don't think we're ever going to know the real answer to that question. But then there is the sad fact that many of these hospitals are incapable of testing even if they had them. And so what are they doing? They're sending their samples to the possibly compromised WHO themselves. For the truther community to now act like this CV, just this one, is suddenly manufactured, this thing has me wondering now if all of them aren't created for decades now. Because again, they're more like a set of commands, kind of like a bad robot trying to get his RNA where it ought not be. Also, we have to be very critical when they are pumping fear at us and ask, have there ever been times in our history when we were told to fear a VIRUS, but then their cure for it proved to be far more dangerous? The answer is a resounding yes. Many